Here's Mario.
Hello.
Hi, Mario.
Hello,
Hello.
Mario.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay.
Wherever Tamir Chachamim, wherever Tamir Chachamim can all would not work on Tisha B'av, and everybody can act like a Tamir Chacham.
Ernie, when are we learning tomorrow morning?
Tomorrow we can learn at in the morning. Let me see here. Let me just see here for a minute. Yeah, tomorrow we could learn at 8 o'clock in the morning. If that
Okay.
works.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay, 8 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you.
Chazal have this thing where people should not act like if people shouldn't act too frum. It's like they're arrogant. Like, so how could Rab Shimon Gamliel say that everyone's allowed to act like a Talmid Chacham? What about Chayshin and Liyahura? What about this thing that we're worried about people taking on airs where they're not really like that? And are you telling me it's a machlokas? Rab Shimon Gamliel says you're not Chayish Liyahura, V'Rabbanan Sarvi Chayshin Liyahura. V'Abib Chashamin. In fact, we've heard just the opposite shitas. The Snan Chasim. You have a groom who just got married. Im Yirtza Likros Kriya Shema Laila Rishon Korei. The din is a Torah b'mitzvah, poter min mitzvah. So since a chassan is he's worried about performing the mitzvah of pru or vu, so he's worried about it. So he can't have the right kavana. So he's poter from Kriya Shema. However, says the Mishnah, if a chassan wants to, he can hold cup, he can read Kriya Shema. That's the Tanakama. L'chura, the Tanakama is not choishesh liyahura, but the Tanakama is the Chachamim. And on the other Gemara of in our case of Tisha B'av, we see that the Chachamim are chayesh liyahura because they don't allow everyone to act like a Talmid Chacham. Because in that Mishnah about the Chasam, Rab Shimon Gamliel Omer, lo kol harotze litos Hashem yitol. What do you mean? You don't have the right. Somebody can say, "Oh, I can read Kriya Shema because." No, that's precious for your escheit. Person can't just decide that he's going to do that, and if he's not, it's mechzik yehura. So we see here, Rav Shimon Gamliel is mechzik yehura, and over there he's not mechzik yehura. How could it be? On Rav Yochanan Muchlevas Hashita. One of these have to be wrong. You have to switch one of these. Rav Sheshet Ravidi Omer, no, you don't have to switch. I will explain the two different cases. The Rabbanon, not the Rabbanon Loi Kasha, Hacha, by Tisha B'av. Kivin de Kulam Le'avdi B'lacha, the Iyul Ovid. Everybody else is working because we're talking about a makam that people did malacha. Everybody's working and he's not working, so mechzik yehura. They don't want people to do that. Aval Hasan by the Chasim, Kivin de Kulam Kari V'Yunami Kari. Well, everybody's reading Kriya Shema, and he's also reading Kriya Shema, so lo mechzik yehura. So it doesn't look like he's doing something unique. Rabbi Shem Galad Rabban Shem Galad Kasha Hasan over there by malacha. Who to be? Excuse me. Awesome by Chasen. Who to be in a kavana? You need kavana for Kriya Shema. The Anan Sadi means we are witnesses. It means it's known. The Lo Matzah Kavne Daite, a Chasen is too worried the night of his wedding in order to be Machavan his das. So if any Chanami goes in and says Kriya Shema, it's Mechzik Yehura. It's inappropriate arrogance. Aval Hacha by Tisha B'av Lo Mechzik Yehura. So first of all, what's going on? Everybody's working, he's not working. That's not a simon that he's a Talmid Chacham. I mean, Malacha Yida Leslie. They'll say he doesn't have a job, he's unemployed, he can't find work. Oh, Puk Chazi Kama Batloninik. But look how many bums there are who don't go to work every day. So he's another bum. They're not going to say, oh, he's not working because he's a Talmid Chacham. Okay. Mishnah. The Chachamim Oimrim, B'Yehuda haya oisim malacha ba'arvei Pesachim ad Chatzos. In Judea, they did work until Erev Pesach, until Chatzos. The Galil lo hayu oisim kol liker. In the Galil, they didn't do malacha all day. Halayla, the night the night of the 14th at night, meaning the night of B'dikas Chametz, Beis Shammai Oisrin, Beis Hillel Matir Nada Netzachama. Beis Hillel says that you're allowed, even if you were in the Galil, who they don't work during the day, at night you would be able to work. So the Gemara points out, Me'ikara Tana Minhaga. Initially, you started talking about minhag, and now when you talk about Beis Shammai, Oisav Asof Tana Isura, is it minhag or is it isur? Amrav Yochanan Loi Kasha. Rab Meir, the previous Mishnah was Rab Meir. Rab Yehuda. This Mishnah is Rab Yehuda, the Tanya. Amrav Yehuda you Oisim Melachim Arvei Pesachim Ad Chatzos. In Judea, they did work Erev Pesach until Chatzos. Uve Galil Einan Oisim Kol Iker, they didn't do work at all. Amrav Rab Meir. Ma Raya Yehuda v'Gal Lakan. What does that have to do with anything? Every place that they had a minhag of heter was heter, and place where they had a minhag of isur isur. So what does that have to do with us? Ella makam shenagol asos malach oisin, makam shenagol asos ein oisin. So Rab Meir clearly holds that it's totally a minhag. Midikam Rab Meir minagam michlad Rab Yehuda isur kamar. Must be that Rab Yehuda says it's not totally minhag, it's totally an isur v'heter. Does Rabbi Yehuda hold that on the 14th you're allowed to do malacha? Vatanya. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Amenachesh. Menachesh is like you're weeding a field. You started on the 13th and you pulled out a stalk of grain in his hand. You can plant it because remember, we want to make sure that the stuff is planted before Pesach. Otherwise, it'll be chadash and won't be permitted to be eaten until the following year. If you can get it into the ground before Pesach, then when it's harvested, it'll be yashan, you'll be able to eat it because the korban oimer matir did. So you got to do it not in a dry place, but in a soft place so that it'll take root. Implying b'shloisha asar in, only on the 13th, bar basar lo, must be because you can't work. So, any grafting that has not taken root for at least 3 days, shuvene koletas. And if, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the 14th you're allowed to do work, lamali shlosha sar, you could have planted it the 14th at night. Vayekar beisar v'chameser makes a shitzer and would have been okay. 3 days. So how could you say Rabbi Yehuda holds that you're allowed to do malacha? If you're allowed to do malacha, he wouldn't have to say planted it on the 13th. We're talking about in Galil, where everybody held that they didn't work on the 14th. Yeah, but even the Galil Va'ekaleli could have planted it the night of the 14th. On Rav Sheshes Kabei Shammai, who held that it was usher at night as well. So I understand. You're forcing Rav Yehuda to hold like Beis Shammai? That's usually not correct. Rav Ashi Omar, therefore, Lo'olam Kabei Hillel. So then how come you can't plant it at night? Lafi Shein Darkan Adam Lachish Balai, people didn't go weed at night. You can't see what you're doing. And rather than say Begala, Ravina Amar Lo'olam Yehuda, Uvahashrasha Chad Miktas Yom Kakul Aminan. To use part of one day instead of the whole day, that you can say. But Trey Miktas Yom Kakul Aminan. We don't put two Miktas Yom Kakulos. You need 2 days and 1 Miktas Yom. That would work. Mishnah. Any work that you started prior to the 14th, go in Rabarbasar, you can finish. It's just haschala you can't do. You shouldn't start a new job on the 14th. Even if you could finish it on the 14th. There were 3 craftsmen because of their need. Prior to Yontif, they were allowed to do malacha erev Pesach until Chatzos. Elon hachayatin, the tailors, hasapar in the hair barbers, the akois in the launderers, Rav Yosef Bar Omer, Afar Ratzonim, even the shoemakers. Iborlu, L'tzorach hamoed tnan. That which Rav Meir said you could finish a malacha on the 14th, is it only malacha that was needed for Yontif, L'tzorach hamoed tnan? Aval shalol l'tzorach hamoed, but if it's not for the purpose of moed, afilu migmar nami lo, even though you started at work on the 13th, you wouldn't be able to finish it on the 14th. Or perhaps the kula of Rav Meir's real kula, which is mean even something that is not needed for Yontif. And in fact, and you could, as long as you started it prior to the 14th, you could finish it on the 14th. And then and if it was for the purpose of Yontif, you'd even be allowed to start a job on the 14th. O Dilma, or perhaps bein l'tzarach hamoed, bein shelo l'tzarach migmar in aschuli lo. Maybe whether the job is required for the Yontif or not for the Yontif, you're only allowed to finish what you started before the 14th, but you're not allowed to start on the 14th. That's the shaila back and forth. Toshma, aval lo yaskil b'tchila bar basar. You may not start a new job on the 14th. Afilu tziltzul cotton, even a small little shmata. Afilu shvacha, even a small little hair net. Now, what does it mean afilu? Isn't it lava afilu hani de l'tzorach hamoed that these things that are needed for the yontif migmar in atzchuli lo? You're only allowed to finish. You can't start. Michlal de shalol l'tzorach migmar nami l'gamrina. Which means if it's not l'tzorach yontif, you wouldn't be allowed to finish, even if you started it before. Versus lo. La'olam de shalol l'tzorach. We're talking about it's not needed for yontif. But migmar nami gamrina. If it's a small job, they could finish it even shalol l'tzorach, as long as you started it before. Umay afilu. That means afilu hani nami. Even these, the zut we need, even though these are small little things, you can finish it. The salkidai techamina, I might have thought. Has chalos and zuig mar malachten. If starting something small is considered like gemar malacha. So maybe naskil bu'unami lechatchila. So maybe lechatchila, I would think that I could start these small jobs even on the 14th. Kamash Malad that no, you could finish on the 14th, but you can't start it. Okay, so that really didn't prove one way or the other. Toshma. Any job that was needed, l'tzarach yontif, goimra bar basar, you can finish it on the 14th. When Amos is manche yischel bo kodem ar basar, as long as you started on the 13th. Avalo hischil bo kodem ar basar. If you didn't start it prior to the 14th, lo yaschil bo bar basar. You shouldn't start it on the 14th. Afilu tzitzel katan, afilu shvach, even a small thing. So l'tzarach hamoed.
Atzil tzul katan is a small belt. That's what he calls it.
Small belt. Okay. Afilu shvach katana, which is a hairnet. So l'tzarach hamoed in shelo l'tzarach hamoed lo. Are you to tell me l'tzarach hamoed no? No. Who adin afilu shelo l'tzarach nami gamri. You could finish a job started prior to the 14th on the 14th, even if it was not l'tzarach yontif. So what's the chiddush? Hakamash v'lon afilu l'tzarach hamoed migbar in aschuli lo. You might think that maybe for the tzarach yontif you'd be able even to start a malach on the 14th. The Gemara says no. Even though it's for the purpose of yontif, you're only allowed to finish. You can't start. Toshma. So again, no proof. Rameir oimer kom lacha shi tzarach hamoed. Lacha that's needed for yontif. Goimra bar basar. You can finish it. V'she'ein l'tzarach hamoed aser. You may not finish it on the 14th. Bar basar v'she'ein l'tzarach hamoed aser. That's only on the 14th if it's not needed for the moed. And oisim malacha bar ve'pesachim chatzos b'makom shenagu. You could do malacha until chatzos in the places where it was accustomed to do so. Makom shenagu in lo nagu lo comes out shmamina l'tzarach hamoed in. You can finish on the 14th l'tzarach hamoed, but shalom l'tzarach hamoed lo. But if it's not l'tzarach hamoed, you would not be able to finish. Shmamina, that's a good raya. The Chachamim oimrim shalosh unyas. There were three types of craftsmen. We said a barber, the tailor, and the launderer. Tana chayatin white tailors can head you toy for gedarka b'chol shemoy. A regular, even a balabayas, can sew up something in chol shemoy. So certainly a professional can do something for the person erev yontif, because chol shemoy is usually more machmir than erev Pesach. Hasapar v'akoivsin, barbers and launderers, shekena b'amdina sayam, somebody who is arriving from overseas or just got out of jail. Let's say they show up in Chol Hamoed. They're allowed to take a haircut. They're allowed to go to a launderer. So if you do it Chol Hamoed, you certainly could do it Erev Pesach. Even the shoemakers. The people who came up from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, they would fix their shoes even Chol Shemoed. If you could do it Chol Shemoed, you can certainly do it Erev Pesach. So b'may kamiflagi, what's the machlokes between the Chachamim who said only 3 and the Mandamar Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda who said even the shoemakers? Ma'asav lemeid in tchilas malacha misof malacha. Means if they were, we learned the beginning of the malacha to the end of the malacha. So if you're allowed to fix shoes during Chol Hamoed, you're certainly allowed lechatchila to make them, because we learn tchilas malacha from sof malacha. Ma'asav we don't learn the fact that the tchilas malacha is not learned from sof malacha. So the fact that you can fix it mutter, but perhaps making it from scratch would be also Mishnah. Moishivin shoyv chilatar negolim bar basar. You could place a chicken on top of an egg to sit on it, to help it, help it fertilize and mature on the 14th day. And Tarnagola Shabarcha, a chicken then ran away from its nest. Machzir no Salim Koma, you can bring it back as well to its place. The Gemara is going to ask if you can put it lechatchila, certainly you can return it. Now, the imesa of the chicken died. You can get another chicken to sit on the egg. Another halacha. You can scrape the fertilizer from underneath the feet of the cow or the horse on Erev Pesach. You can't do grifa, you can move it over to the side, which is less of an halacha. You could bring something to fix to a craftsman. You can bring it and you can take it home. Even though you don't need it for Yontif. So hashta usri musvin, and if you can place a chicken lechatchila on the egg, during a boy to return it, is there any shaila? Rabbi Seif ason l'chol shamoy. The returning is chol hamoed, that you're allowed to return, but you can't lechatchila place it. That's only 3 days from when it rebelled and ran away. Because then beyond that 3 days, it won't have the warmth anymore. And after 3 days, the eggs are going to get lost. But after 3 days, the that the warmth left from it. And therefore within the 3 days, the eggs have not ruined. So the din is lo madrinon. We would not return them because it's not necessary. No, even within 3 days of it sitting on the eggs, you can return it. And what's the machlokas? To a big loss, we're chayshish, but but for a small loss, it's not of concern. Even for a small loss, they would be concerned you would bring the chicken back, otherwise it would be a small loss. The fertilizer in the courtyard, so you can push them off to the side. In the corral or the barn, we can even take it out to the garbage. Agufa kasha. In the courtyard, you only can move it to the side. You can take it out to the Ashman Arbasa, but to the Mulad on the side only Chol Shemoy. You can do more Erev Pesach than you can in Chol Shemoy. Rava Amar Hava Hava Chol Shemoy. Both are talking about Chol Shemoy. Vachi Kamer. In Nasa Chatzar Karefes, if your outside courtyard is like a barn, then you can move that as well to the Ashpa as well. Then Molichin Kelim Avim Beis HaUmen. You can bring an item to fix to the craftsman, and you can even bring it home. Amrav Papa Badikla and Rava checked us. Tanan Molichin Levin Kelim Beis HaUmen. You can take it over to the dressmaker or whoever fixed these kelim and bring it back. Even though it's not needed for Yontif. You cannot pick up kelim. But if you're concerned it's going to be stolen, you don't take it home, but you can move it to a different chutzner. We said there's no steer between those two cases. Loy kasha. Kan ba'ar basar, where moilichin meviin, and kan b'chol shalmoid, where you can't do both. V'boy sema hava b'chol shalmoid, both are talking about chol shalmoid. V'loy kasha, kan b'mamino, if you trust that the craftsman's going to give it back to you, kan b'shena mamino, then you can go and get it because you're afraid you're going to lose it. Ay v'atani mevin kema b'esa umen, you can bring a kli that was going to be fixed, kagona kad b'besa kader, a jug from the jug maker, and a cup from the glazer of a lotzemer besa tzava, but not wool from the dyer, and not let's say clothing from the tailor. Now, if the worker doesn't have what to eat, give him his payment, leave it there. But if you don't trust him, you move it over to a house next door. However, if there it's going to be afraid that it's going to be stolen, you can bring it to your house. You got to do it quietly. So Tarat to Mevian, that's bringing it home. But Moilichin Kasha, what about bringing it Lachatchila to the craftsman? Diktani ein Mevian, V'koshkein ein Molichin. So we have to explain the way we explained before. We don't accept this teretz. Okay, so we'll pick up the Mishnah tomorrow morning.
All right.
Good night.
Good
See you in the
night.
morning.
Joya.